Have you just moved into a new home and want to get the ball rolling by decorating your space? Or maybe you're just sick of the space you currently have and are really looking to inject a new lease of life into your home. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Jacqueline, I'm an interior designer, and today I'm breaking down my 6 essential tips on where to start when designing your space. This is for you if you're feeling overwhelmed when decorating your home, like you don't really even know where to start, what to buy, how to pull everything together. Don't worry, because I'm sharing all of my practical starting points. Recently, my mother and father-in-law moved into a new place, and she was texting me things like, what do you think of this coffee table? What do you think of this rug? What should we do over here? And it made me wonder that I think a lot of people feel this when decorating a space. So before you start designing any space, whether that's a living room, bedroom, or a tiny home office, just stop for a second, because there are actually a few things you're going to need to do first if you want your design to actually work. And honestly, once you start to do these things, your space is going to feel a lot more intentional and more beautiful. So if you're ready, let's jump in. Okay, so here's the deal. The first foundation to creating good interior design is knowing your dimensions. Before you start buying anything or even picking out paint colors, you gotta know your dimensions. Seriously, get a tape measure and write those numbers down. Measure the length, width, and height of your space. And I know that may seem obvious, but you'll be surprised how many times people just buy a sofa that barely fits through the front door, or a rug that is more like a bath mat in the middle of a room. To make your life easier, depending on the space you're working with, of course, I always use one of these laser distance measurers. It just makes my life so much easier when it comes to measuring, especially if I'm on a big project. This is going to help you see how everything fits together before you start shopping. It's kind of like a cheat sheet for your room. This is important because sometimes I see people execute the vision in their mind, but it might not actually work in practice in real life because of the measurements of the space. Like, for example, painting a feature wall. Now, unless you're wanting to bring in a wall visually to shorten the length of a, say, rectangular room, if you do it in, say, a square room, it's just going to make the space seem smaller than it is, which has actually achieved nothing. Nothing good anyway. That's why knowing your dimensions is crucial, because then you can assess the shape of the room, what the longest wall is, the ceiling height, how much room you've got to play around with, and are all walls equal in length, because you'd be surprised at how often they're actually not. And don't forget little things like measuring windows, doors, outlets, radiators, anything that could get in the way. You'll thank yourself later when you realize you don't have to shift your whole setup because an outlet is behind a large piece of furniture. Once you've done this step, you can then start to look for furniture so that everything can fit perfectly in your space. Before you start filling up your space, take a step back and just think about what design style actually feels like you. This is where I think a lot of people get stuck, and they like a little bit of everything and end up mixing too many ideas all at once. So step number 2, one of my most essential design steps, is to define your own personal design style. We want to create clarity from the very, very beginning. Before you go shopping and start picking paint colors, fabrics, or anything like that, please get clear on your overall design style. I want you to start by figuring out the overall vibe you want your space to have. That's what's going to make your home feel a lot more cohesive. Do you lean more modern and transitional, timeless and traditional, or maybe a little eclectic and maximalist? There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about what makes you feel comfortable and inspired when you walk into a room. And a great way to get started is to create a mood board. You can use Pinterest, screenshots, or even just a photo album on your phone. Start to collect images that make you go, ooh, I love that. However, a lot of the time I feel like people don't actually know. They're not quite sure what their style is. Hence, that's why we're making design style guides here on the channel. Pinterest is especially helpful as well because of their algorithm. If you scroll down on a pin that you like and see these words, it may be the first indication to your design style. Once you actually have the name for the design style you like, it's going to be a lot easier to actually find information on how to decorate in that style. Then you'll find patterns, fabrics, furniture, and colours that not only fit in that design style, but work really well alongside each other. And here's the thing, you don't have to fit perfectly into one label. Most people are a mixture of styles, and that's fine. Every great design needs a starting point, something that sets the tone for the rest of the space. So before you start choosing colours and furniture, look around and see if there's anything already in your room that can guide the design. In design, we use this a lot of the time as a starting point for a project. Maybe it's a beautiful painting that the client has had for years, or even an architectural feature like a fireplace or historic mid-century feature walls. If your space has a really striking feature like a stone wall or wooden beams, lean into that. With the painting, for example, we could then take the colours from it to influence the rest of the spatial design. Or with the dominant fireplace, if the client wants to keep it, of course, we already know that it's going to play a big part in the design. So we can make that the focal point of the room and really showcase its beauty. Elements like this become your base point, the thing that everything else builds off of. Think of it like picking the lead character in your design story. My biggest piece of advice is to work with what your room gives you instead of fighting against it, unless of course you're doing a whole renovation. And if your space is truly a blank slate, no standout features, no artwork, anything like that, that's okay too. You can create your own base point using the other points I mentioned. You can find one item you absolutely love. Maybe it's a piece of furniture, a fabric, or even a family photo that captures the mood you want. Use that as your anchor and let everything else fall into place around it. As a side note, if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and a comment. I really appreciate that. And subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. Alright, this might not be the most glamorous, fun part of designing a room, but trust me, knowing where your plug sockets are is going to save you a ton of frustration later. There's nothing worse than setting up the perfect furniture layout and then realizing that your lamp cord doesn't reach the outlet, or your TV can't be put where you want it to be placed, and then there's just wires absolutely everywhere, destroying the look of the interior, and it all just becomes a mess. So before you start moving things around, take a minute to note exactly where your plug sockets are and how many you have. Once you know that, plan your layout around them, not against them. The only room in the house where this shouldn't be a problem is the kitchen probably, where outlets are placed intentionally. And of course, if you live in America, you'll have plug sockets in your bathrooms as well. We don't have them here in the UK. If you've got limited outlets, think smart. Maybe use multi-plug extensions or furniture with built-in charging ports. If you're placing a desk, make sure that outlets are easy to reach for your computer and lighting. For example, a lot of the time I see home offices with the desk right in the middle of the room, and it can look really nice and it's a big statement, but think about the plug socket situation in that scenario. Yeah, the goal is to design a space that looks great and works effortlessly in your day-to-day life. And hey, if one of your outlets is in an awkward location, and let's be real, one of them probably will be, you can still make them work. Use cord covers, smart placement, or even floor outlets if you're doing a renovation. The idea isn't to hide everything, it's to make your space functional and stylish. But of course, I highly recommend working in unison with your plug sockets rather than placing the TV on the other side of the room where there is no socket. When your design actually works with your electrical setup, you'll thank yourself every single time you buy an electrical appliance, believe me. Almost every project I'll ask my clients in the initial questionnaire, how would you describe the space you want to create? Sometimes they'll give me actual design styles as their keywords, which is obviously really helpful, but they'll also give me descriptive adjectives. So the next thing I recommend you do before decorating is choose 3 to 4 words that describe how you want the space to feel, really the vibe you want to create. Think about how you want to feel when you walk into a room. Do you want it to be calm, cozy, and grounding? Or maybe energetic and inspiring? Or maybe you're thinking more practically and your words are storage, stress-free, and fun. Those 3 little words become your design compass. They'll guide every choice you make from here on out. Once you've got your words, use them to create an atmospheric mood board. I do this in all of my projects. Head to Pinterest, save images that capture that feeling, and don't worry if they're not all interior photos. Nature shots, fashion, lighting, architecture, textures, or colors can help set the tone. And here's why this step matters. When you're shopping later on, these 3 words keep you on track. I even do this myself for my own home. If you've watched our living room renovation, then you'll already know that my words are calm, mid-century, and zen. If you're debating between 2 items, just ask yourself which one is cozy, calming, and grounding, or whatever your keywords are. It really helps to filter out things that wouldn't work alongside each other in a space. I honestly think this step helps the design feel cohesive and intentional from the start instead of random. Alright, now that you've got your measurements, the style, and the overall mood, it's time to start sketching the plan. Now, a lot of people don't do this, which is wild to me, because how are you actually going to know if the potential furniture is going to work, let alone even fit in the space? Don't worry, this doesn't have to be fancy or perfectly drawn. Just grab a piece of paper and do a quick layout of your room. I have a whole video on how to draw floor plans by hand if you want a proper guide, but mark where the doors are, windows, radiators, and outlets. Then start playing around with where your furniture could go. And if you're not sure whether a piece of furniture will actually fit, here's a super helpful trick. Cut pieces from a roll of brown paper to the actual size of the furniture you're considering and lay them out on the floor. You'll instantly see if the sofa is going to overwhelm the room or actually be a lot smaller than you imagined. You can of course size things up using a tape measure, but if you want to do a kind of trial run of what to expect with furniture, this is just such a great trick. It's so simple and low effort, and you can really start to see the proportions before you actually commit to buying anything. And when you're doing this, really think about scale. You don't want furniture that dwarfs the space, and equally, you don't want furniture that feels lost and too tiny. By simply doing a rough sketch and mapping out the size of furniture, it's going to help you to design with intention rather than impulse. And that's how you create a space that not only looks amazing, but feels like you. Please leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the video. I really appreciate that, and it really does help to grow the channel. And if you need help fulfilling your own design dreams, I've left our website in the description. I really hope that these tips can guide you when you start to design a new space in your home, and I hope that you learned at least one thing from the video. But that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!